Hey guys, Darren Asbury here with Revital Outdoors, bringing you another exciting podcast. Tonight, we're going back to the great state of Georgia. We're going to talk about Lake Oconee. Again, that BFL is coming up in the next few weeks, and we're talking to another angler that got a top 10 finish from there last year. So tonight, we're talking to Mr. Cody Stahl. Before we get started, as always, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel if you haven't already. That way you get notified when all of our content is dropping. Check us out on Facebook and Instagram. That's going to be Revital Outdoors. And then, as always, if you've never heard of Revital Outdoors, check out our website. We're a premium CBD company for all the great outdoor enthusiasts. So you can purchase our products online. We're THC free, made right here in America. I got great products for all the different ailments that all the outdoor enthusiasts is dealing with. And then also, if you're interested in pro staff opportunities, check out that pro staff tab. Fill out the application. We'll be happy to review it. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get right into this podcast. Very excited to have Mr. Cody Stahl with us this evening. How you doing tonight, sir?
Doing pretty good. How about you?
Doing great, doing great. Well, man, let's just get right into it. Last year, top 10 finish, Lake Oconee. Looked up your record. You're a hell of an angler in the state of Georgia. So tell us a little bit more about Oconee and why does it fit your style so good?
I appreciate it. So pretty much, Oconee was one of my home lakes growing up. I only lived like an hour and a half away all my life. And my dad, I really learned the style of fishing from fishing Oconee, Sinclair, and Jackson, and especially from my dad. My dad, he was a stick around the house. And so I kind of took after his shoes. And so pretty much like all those lakes around there, they're all shallow water fisheries. A lot of the guys, a lot of the hammers, they're all shallow water guys. And that's just kind of been the style I grew up fishing, and that's still who I am today.
Okay. So let's talk about your tournament last year. Top 10 finish. Man, just walk it through us. What'd you find in practice and what were you able to piece together and why did it just come together for you?
So um, that time of year, I was still living. I actually just moved down to Eufaula a couple months before that, prior to that, and I've been looking forward to that tournament for a while. And so I was like, you know what? Even though I live in Eufaula on this awesome fishery, I'm still going to go drive back home like 2.5 hours to go practice for that tournament because throughout college, I've been looking forward to getting out of college to be able to go fish all those local tournaments back home. And so when I finally had the opportunity to go fish on my home lake on a time of year that has really been my bread and butter, anywhere from the fall to late April, early May is really when I know how to catch them over there. And I was, I decided, I'm gonna go home. I'm gonna go fish this tournament.
Right.
And so I spent a lot of time on Oconee and just checking all the stuff I've always fished. And really, I spent probably every weekend there for almost 2 months. Just fishing even local, more local tournaments there, and just keeping in touch with them. And I just found little key stretches that I've watched and just the fish develop and go into all the spawning areas. And the main difference from last year's tournament versus this year's tournament is we had a lot more stable weather, and so those fish were a lot further along than they are now, and a lot of them are spawning. And it wasn't even the first wave during that tournament. I believe for that last year's tournament we were on the second wave, and for this year's tournament, I think the big difference is going to be, all this crazy weather that we're supposed to be having the week of the tournament is really going to open the doors for a lot of people. But last year, it was just textbook shallow water fishing. Um, and I have a few little key stretches that when they get to where they're spawning at, they just straight get on those stretches. And now outside of when they spawn, they're hardly ever there, and you just got to follow them to and from there. But a lot of guys that did good last year were fishing in those staging areas and where they were spawning. But this year, I think there's absolutely no telling how those bigger bags are going to be caught because looking forward to this week's weather, we're supposed to be having all this rain and cloud and overcast, and the day of the tournament, we're supposed to have still not too cold of a morning, but throughout the day, the temps are supposed to be dropping around noon. And whenever you get that on that lake, it really throws a curveball. And sometimes, honestly, this time of year, it can go one or two ways. Either it can be really, really good or it can be really bad. I've seen it firsthand multiple times out there, and I, I believe you're going to have some of the locals that know how to. First thing in the morning, they're going to go, fish their normal stuff, and they're gonna catch a decent limit. And then as soon as the clouds start to dissipate and that front starts moving in really, really heavy, and the temp starts dropping, I believe it's going to open the doors for a lot of guys that are throwing the abnormal Oconee styles of fisheries, like doing something just outside of the book, and really, I think that's when you're going to see those guys that aren't locals really shine in this tournament because of that weather.
Okay. Okay. Well, I got a couple questions for you. Are you a dirty water angler, or do you like to relate to the clear water? It doesn't matter to you.
I definitely like some stain to it. Absolutely. Especially, around the house that just suits my style of fishing. That's what I'm used to. I'm, really known as a river rat. I fish in a couple inches of water, and that's how it is. There's normally about two depths around the house for what I like to do, and that's you got rod depth, half a rod depth, and past rod depth, and that's about it.
I got you. Well, that kind of answers my next question. I was going to ask, do you like to fish deep or shallow? But if you're going up the river and fishing that dirty water, then you're up shallow with them.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Which honestly, with this rain, it's going to put some dirty water in some of the areas of the lake that normally don't see it, and that's going to be also, throw a hitch in a lot of people's plans, and also open up a window for some of those fish that aren't really used to that, really dirty water getting in those backs of the little pockets off the main river about mid lake. Historically, when we get this much rain all piled together, that mid lake tends to, pop into play, which normally is not really seen too much this time of year. But I guarantee you there will be some of the at least three guys out of the top 10 fishing that mid lake area.
Okay. Okay. So give us a little idea about baits. I mean, you don't have to be too specific, but if an angler is coming to Oconee to fish this year, what was successful for you last year, and what do you think you're going to have on the deck this year? Just kind of just a brief style.
I mean, typically you can always go to Oconee and flip a jig, throw a spinner bait, a chatterbait, a crankbait, and you're always going to catch them. I mean, and this time of year, it's really not really dependent upon the bait. It's about finding those key little stretches that just produce a couple like 3 and 4 pounders, even 5 pounders, just all piled together within 25 yards, and that's really the key.
I got you. I got you. So, okay. What stage do you think the fishing? We talk about going up shallow, going up that river. Are they there just because that's where they're there this time of year feeding up on the shad, or are they there getting ready to spawn? They're in that staging area.
So I actually got out there for about 2.5 hours just looking around this past Saturday, and I honestly think they're in a lump and trying to figure out where they want to be because the last 2 weeks we got some really, really warm weather really fast, and that it warmed the water temp up a lot faster than it normally does. And whenever that happens, it's almost like the fish are trying to catch up to it. They're, even though the water temp says, they're supposed to be up on the bank. I honestly don't see, that being too great of a case. I think they're going to be on that secondary stuff, and because of how fast the water temp came up, and with the weather we're having, it's going to knock it right back down. I saw 64 this past weekend, and I honestly don't think we'll see 60 this weekend from all the cold rain,
Wow.
and especially the wind from on Saturday.
Okay. Okay. To me, when you talk about that, it tells me move a little bit deeper, slow way down, still fish the same baits, but slow way down a little bit deeper. Those fish are still there. They just got knocked in the head a little bit.
Mm-hmm. You're exactly
Okay.
right.
Okay. So, one last question before we let you go. A lot of anglers talk about Oconee having a great like dock setup. There's not a whole lot of docks, but they set up really, really well for anglers. Anglers can be very successful in the dock. What's your take on that? Is that something in your game plan? Break that down for us a little bit.
Well, Oconee is pretty much 95% docks. I mean, that lake is just slam full of docks, and you can fish 1,500 docks in a day, and you're only going to come across 15, 20 docks that is going to have them. And
That's why I said there's not many docks there. And what I mean by that is it's really hard to find, to pick the ones that are holding the fish.
I mean, that's honestly just how you have to fish that place. Is just you fish docks and you keep moving to the next one until you get a bite, and you just remember that dock. And certain times of the year, you'll find little key pockets, little key stretches that, like those 25-yard stretches, you'll come across, 5 docks that have a fish on every single one of them. And then, you fish the next 150 docks, and you'll catch a couple 12 inchers. And then you come across the next 5 docks that might have, 3 or 4 fish on it. That's just kind of how that place sets up.
Okay. I've also talked to a lot of anglers, and they've told me that there's a really good population of largemouth. That being said, if an angler does want to chase after the spotted bass, do they relate to the docks, or they just fish and run into one, or is there anything that kind of separates them? And is that a game plan to go after, or just go fishing, in your opinion?
In all my years of fishing Oconee, I've never seen a full, complete 5 bass limit of spotted bass weighed in, because there's not that many of them at all.
Well, that takes that out of the equation. Okay, so we're relating to largemouth and Oconee, so that's really cool. Well, Cody, best of luck to you this year. Again, congratulations on your top 10 finish. You're an absolute hammer in the lake. Anybody that checks out your Facebook or your profile on Major League Fishing can see that. But before we let you go, we just want to give you the last opportunity here before we get off to thank any of your sponsors. I know you got a lot of people that support you, even some new players in the fishing industry that you represent, so that's really cool. But anybody like that, or your friends or your family you want to thank, we just want to give you the opportunity to do that.
Thank you, Aaron. So I do have a ton of support. I'm really, blessed with the support that I have. All my family, my friends, and especially, all my sponsors. My dad, my parents have been back. They've been supporting me since I was a little bitty thing. Ever since I was 4, and my dad, taking me out there, even though half the time I was asleep when I was 4, I was still out there, and he kind of fueled the passion for me. And my family is where all my support starts. And really, throughout my career, I've been blessed with a lot of good companies, a lot of awesome folks backing me. Big Bite Baits, one of my newest sponsors that's been sponsoring me for the last year, TDS Molds, is also where I work. They've been a huge part in what I do, and allow me to take off work to go fish the opens and do all the fishing that I do. They've really stepped up to the game this year. ALX Rods, I've been with them for almost 8 years now. They're awesome people over there. They're great rods. If you're looking for a rod, you need to definitely check them out, because I've actually won my first rod from them, and ever since then, I never bought another rod since then, from any other company. It's all been ALX Rods. True South Custom Lures, they make an awesome jig, and my style of fishing, you definitely have to have an awesome jig, and they'll customize it however you like. And definitely, so one of my good friends, Hunter Bland, he started a company up not too long ago. It's Not Finished Fishing, and his company he states it's all about never giving up. Fish to the very last cast and utilize every second, and just never stop pushing yourself to do good, and just compete with all your heart. And he's an awesome dude, and I'm here to testify to it, because I've known him ever since my freshman year of college. And what he stands for and what his company stands for is like that's what I want back. And having him on board this year is just awesome. It's been a blessing.
Yeah, good for you. There's a lot to be said for that. Even for the anglers out there that struggle a lot in tournaments, they still have to be reminded it's still fishing. Even the consistently, bad tournaments, it happens to all of us. Some more than others, but just stick with it. Never give up. And remember, I'll give one last tip before we get off here. Remember why this sport was created. Remember, we're out in God's glory. And remember that, sometimes I think we need to take a step back and remember we're still fishing. So,
Absolutely.
and it's the greatest sport. It's the greatest sport on earth, in my opinion. Anybody can do it. There's no ifs, ands, or buts. It's just a great opportunity for everybody. And so, yeah, I appreciate you saying that testimony there. That's really great. So, well, Cody, I really appreciate you coming on board this evening with Revital Outdoors for this podcast. Good luck to you this year. We hope to see you again. Obviously, if your tournament season this year is going well, we will talk to you again. So good luck to you and all the anglers fishing the Bulldog division this year with Major League Fishing in the BFLs. And yeah, so from all of us at Revital Outdoors, thank you for tuning into another podcast. You've been talking to Mr. Cody Stahl, top 10 angler from Lake Oconee last year, Bulldog division. Be safe out there. God bless everybody, and we'll talk to everyone on the next podcast.